Hello everyone. Hope you can all hear me. Um, let's just get this up. I suppose a bit of an intro is called for. I feel a bit of an imposter in the present company. Um, my company, Languages Out There, produces content and teaching and learning materials. And as such, I think probably in the company of ETCon and Buzu and people like that, we're, our knowledge of communities and crowdsourcing and stuff like that is probably less, but also markedly different. When to get going really, or to do the intro, I looked at this question of the communities and the power of crowdsourcing, and I thought, well, am I qualified to present on that? Probably not. So I thought I'd go back to the beginning and try and sort of get my head around what it is, and that's how I've sort of gone about the presentation. But when I started doing it and looking into stuff, and I did history at university, so I always like to go back a long way and look for the source of things. As I was doing it, and this will come out at the end of the presentation, I sort of, something clicked and I thought, oh, well, hang on, that links to one of the big questions that I've been wrestling with for the last sort of 9-12 months as I've got us more and more online, which is the sort of the question of free content versus paid content. So I'm going to try and maybe bizarrely link communities and the power of crowdsourcing, the history of it, with free and paid content. So bear with me. Now then, let's how do I boom. Let's go. How do I advance the screen? There we go. Okay, let's go to the next one. Here we go. Community. I started with thinking about what is what is a community, or what communities do we actually operate in at the moment, in our lives, and trying to think why in the last 2, 3, 4 years, why is everyone going online to operate or work or share information or make friends in communities online? And that image is a bit scary. They're football hooligans who, have a community of their own, and usually, or most of the time, we hope they end up down here in prison. But we all have a community at home. We all have a community at work. We go out in the street, we're in a community, a different one there. We go to a shop, that's a community. We go to clubs. If we transgress, we end up in court. That's a kind of community, a legal community. And then, if you're a football hooligan and you get caught, you end up in a closed community, which is a prison. And I just started then, I got to the point and said, well, why are we all going online? If we've got all these communities, if we've got all these things, why are we going online? So I thought, well, let's go back and let's have a look at, who started really thinking about community. And I found this guy in the 19th century called Ferdinand Tönnies. I think Kirsten will probably correct my pronunciation of Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. And he talked about the unity of will. And the interesting thing about what he, as a sociologist, wrote about in the 19th century and came to be quite famous for, was that he had just two concepts of community. He said there were two, which was Gemeinschaft, Gesellschaft, and the first one, which I've said here and put the number 1 by, is selflessness. and that's to do with your home life and your family, and nothing's too much trouble, and you share and stuff like that. And the other one, number two, there and there, is Gesellschaft, which, by the way, means limited company in Germany. And Germany, interestingly enough, was the first country to set up the legal formation of the company limited by guarantee, and it was seen as a very, very dangerous thing in the 19th century when this happened. So the Germans put some interesting checks and balances in that if everyone else in the world, they still exist in Germany, and this is one of the reasons why the credit crunch didn't hit them so hard, but if everyone else in the world had followed the German sort of legal setup or precedent of a limited company, we probably wouldn't have had the credit crunch. That's a big statement, but and I'm not a financial expert, but it's an interesting concept to think about. So, in the 19th century, two concepts: selflessness and self-interest. And this was me googling away. So then I thought, okay, let's keep digging. And in all of my digging, I sort of came up with the fact that there were these usual things cropping up: the home, the office, and then as we went through sort of history, there came in this thing, the community hangout, which is a modern word, or the gathering place. And the word "the third place" kept cropping up. And 200 years ago, the third place was probably your local religious institution, and that's where you went to hang out and meet people, and you didn't have to be tough or disciplined as you did at work, but you also were in a different environment, and it wasn't like home. So this is the third place. And while I was looking at that and thinking about religion, I saw this quotation from a guy called Putnam from his book Bowling Alone, which I thought was amazing, and thought, well, is there any parallel between attendance at club meetings in the United States falling by 58% and the rise of social media and communities online, and therefore heading towards crowdsourcing? And I don't know. There might well be. You tell me. But I think that it's interesting that this statistic comes out of America, and there's a to my way of thinking, and this is purely, all of this is my personal opinion. There's a marked contrast in American rhetoric that comes out internationally. Most American politicians and most American business leaders kind of use the language and strap themselves quite tightly to the concept of family values. But as you see, at the same time, while they're encouraging family values, meetings, family dinners, and friends visiting family have fallen drastically. There might be, a lot of people still going to religious meetings in America, but is it the majority? It's not the majority, probably. It's only a certain group of people. So with this going on, the third place that we hear talked about up here has kind of changed. And with technology making it easier, like we are today, to talk across borders and many time zones, the third place undoubtedly is online, and